If you've been scrolling through endless lists of fish finders, watching video after video of people bragging about the best sonar on the market, and still feel stuck wondering which unit actually makes sense for a day on the water, this review is meant to clear that up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last several weekends on a 16-foot bass boat, a couple of days on a larger offshore cruiser, and even a few slow mornings on a quiet lake, trying to see how a chart plotter sonar combo lives up to the hype. The biggest worry most anglers have is ending up with a gadget that looks great on paper but ends up being more of a paperweight when you're actually trying to locate that elusive 12 bass. And because the price point sits in the mid-range for Garmin's marine line, you want to know whether the extra dollars translate into real-world value or just another glossy screen. So, let's break down the Garmin ECHOMAP UHD2 93SV with GT56 Transducer and see exactly who should be putting this on their boat and who might want to keep looking. First off, the most obvious thing you'll notice when you power this unit on is the 9-inch touchscreen. It's bright enough that you can actually read it under direct noon sun without squinting, which is a big deal for anyone who spends hours scanning the water while the sun is high. The screen isn't just about brightness, the interface is laid out like a typical Garmin GPS Think RoadNav maps you're used to, but with water depth contours and sonar overlay. What that does in practice is let you shift from a simple "where am I" view to a full-fledged "where's the fish" view with a couple of taps. On the lake I was on, the transition was almost instantaneous, letting me plot a quick route to a promising drop-off and then switch to the sonar view to confirm there was a school of fish right where the map indicated. The GT56 transducer that ships with the unit is a solid all-rounder. It supports Garmin's traditional single-beam sonar, ClearV for higher resolution images, and side V scanning for a wider field of view. The key thing here is versatility. If you're a bass fisherman who likes to keep everything simple, you can run the traditional mode and still get reliable depth readings. If you decide you want that crisp, high-definition picture of the bottom, you just toggle to ClearV. On my offshore cruiser, I switched to side V while trolling a trolling motor-linked route, and the extra 90-degree side view helped me locate a school that was slightly off my main heading. The transducer also plugs directly into the hull, which means you won't be dealing with a messy external mount that can get tangled with your lines. Now, let's talk about the built-in Navionics plus US inland maps. What this really means is you get detailed lake and river charts right out of the box, no need to download separate files or worry about missing data for your local waters. In my experience, the maps were spot on for the larger reservoirs I frequent, showing depth contours, boat ramps, and even marked fishing hotspots that some other brands leave out. The integration of Navionics data also lets you overlay your own waypoints and routes onto the existing chart, which is handy if you've been using a separate GPS device for years. The only downside I noticed is that the map data is primarily US focused. If you're planning to take this unit down under or to European rivers, you'll have to buy additional map packs, which adds to the overall cost. One feature that feels more like a hidden gem than a headline is the Wi-Fi connectivity. Not only can you share sonar snapshots, waypoints, and routes with your phone, but you can also link directly to Garmin's force trolling motor, when you have one. That connection lets you set a route on the chart plotter and have the motor follow it automatically, a level of automation you usually only see on higher-end vessels. In practice, I set a route around a lake's perimeter, and the trolling motor kept a steady speed while I focused on the sonar feed, freeing up my hands for casting. For someone who wants to stay on the water longer and minimize the pilot-and-fish juggling act, that integration is a real time saver. So who should actually buy the ECHOMAP UHD2? If you are a serious bass or freshwater angler who spends most of your time on lakes and rivers and want a single device that handles both navigation and fish finding without needing a separate chart plotter. A weekend cruiser who likes to explore new waterways and needs reliable maps and a versatile sonar that can adapt from shallow riverbeds to deeper offshore spots. Someone who already owns a Garmin force trolling motor or plans to, because the seamless motor-to-chart integration adds real practicality. On the flip side, you might want to skip this unit if you're a strict offshore fisherman who primarily hunts in deep-water environments and rely heavily on high-power, multi-frequency sonar rigs that exceed the GT56 performance.